So in this demonstration, I want you to imagine you are running a chain of care homes and your maintenance guy wants to buy a new drill. So this guy is going to log into Zahara, he's going to see a screen similar to this, and we want him to raise a purchase request and seek approval from you for this new drill. So he's going to come into Zahara and he's going to click create and then new purchase order. He's going to see a screen like this and his first choice is to choose a supplier. So he wants to buy it from Travis Perkins. So he's going to choose Travis Perkins. We can have a supplier email. We've got the currency here. We've got the delivery address, which could be defaulted to your office, or it could be a jobs delivery address. There could be a custom field that you set up. It can be the type of purchase. Is he buying a capital expense or operational expense? Let's just say it's operational expense. And now it's a question of what is it you want to buy. Now you could type out here, copy and paste from a website, or if you've got products that are pre-chosen, I've got a couple here. So I've got the DeWalt drill that I want to buy. So I'm going to just choose that from a list and drop it onto a line item. So now I've got a DeWalt drill for £1,089.37 plus VAT. We've pre-selected the nominal code because that's what's set for Travis Perkins as a supplier, and I could override that if I wanted to. And I've got the required date of tomorrow, which is a default. And if I wanted to move that into a kind of spreadsheety view, I could do that. And if I wanted to add another line item, I can just put this in here. It could be something like shipping for £20. So there's my purchase. It's 2 lines adding up to £13.31.24. So I'm going to click on continue. Now, if a budget exists, we can show this person how their purchase affects the budget. So we've got nominal code 5,000, which is materials purchase. You're adding a purchase of £1,109.37. Your budget is 5,000 for the month because it's the monthly budget. You're in budget, so you're good to go. Click on continue. If I want to add some comments, so need this as my drill has broken, I can put that in. If we want them to add a quote, we can do that as well. And we can either review it or we can just create the purchase order. So if I review it, I'm effectively just going to get a view of everything that I've created so far. I'm going to click create purchase order. So our maintenance guy's purchase request is now available in the list view, Travis Perkins. We've given it a number of 2240 and it's pending approval. So that means that the person in the approval workflow is going to get an email and get notified and ask them to approve it. So our approver receives an email virtually straight away. And from this email, they can clearly see what the purchaser wants to buy. So in my case, I've got 2 line items here. I've got the DeWalt drill, plus I've got shipping. I can see the net amount, I can see the tax, and I can see the comment. Need this as my drill is broken. And I've got the history of the order so far. So order created by Martin with the internal comment. I could be the third approver and I might want to see the comments from the other approvers as well. And I've got a choice, approve, reject, or review with details. I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to click approve. So without taking any additional action, the purchase request has now been approved. So in any fast moving business, you're going to be buying things all the time. So when you come into Zahara and you come into the purchase orders list view, you'll get a list of all the things that are being purchased at any one time. And you can choose the fields that you want to display. So our purchase we just made to Travis Perkins, 2240, we click on the approval status. We'll see that I approved it up here, Martin approved it. It then evaluated whether it needed to get the second approver to approve, and it didn't. It's now evaluating whether the third person needs to approve it, which is the finance director, and it will turn out that person doesn't need to approve it either. But it will go on and send the confirmation email to the buyer, and it will send a purchase order off the supplier if the rules allow it to. I'm going to show you that in a moment. If something is approved, you can check it, you can see what happened. So in this case, department head approved it, sent a confirmation email to the buyer, sent the PO off to the supplier. And of course, if we want to review anything and take a look at anything, we can just click into a purchase, have a look at it, and we've got the line items, the coding, and we've got the all-important document history down here as well. So from when it was created to it being sent off to the supplier. And from our actions menu, we could edit something, attach file, we could add a note as well. So every purchase can be like a case. So received a message and update from the supplier, for example. And finding a purchase is dead easy as well. 2228, click search. There's my purchase I was in a second ago. And it could be that you want to know who you buy DeWalt from. So if we typed in DeWalt here, we would have all of the purchase orders we've raised, any products we've got listed as well. So DeWalt Random Orbit Sander, we've got it from Screwfix Direct for £91.63. So if I clicked into that, you can come into purchase orders, you can search for something. So it will take me into the Screwfix listing, and I can look at the purchase history, or I can look at the products. So Zahara is very easy to navigate, and all of the permissions are very layered, so only the right people can see the right areas of the program. So back at our purchase for our Travis Perkins order 2240, it's now showing green, fully approved. Sent a confirmation email to the buyer, sent a PL to the supplier, and automating the sending of the purchase order is very straightforward. The supplier can receive an email like this, together with a copy of the purchase order. And we can also ask the supplier to accept or reject the purchase order. And if we get them to accept it, they don't need an account or anything like that. We just ping Zahara with a message to say that the purchase order has been accepted. And then back in our list view, if we were to refresh that now, which is fully customizable, as you'd expect, we can see that the purchase order has been sent and it's been accepted. So the next part of the process, actually, when you think about it, is the order will need to be delivered or collected. So as an optional step in Zahara, you can actually have things receipted, what we call GRN, goods received note process. So in this case here, we've got an icon to tell us whether or not something has been received. And receiving something is very easy. You can do it on the mobile app, or you can do it in the application itself. So at some stage, the buyer or the warehouse can be asked to log into Zahara and mark something off as having been received. And that's very simple. You find the order, you tick it, you click Actions, in GRN. We ask you the question, have you received this purchase order in full? Yes, I have. And all we're doing here is we're showing that, you ordered one, we've received one, you ordered one shipping, you've had one shipping. And GRN is very much a quantity-based thing rather than a value-based thing. And we've got some additional fields here. If you want to take a photograph of the delivery note or the collection note, you can do that. So I'm just going to click Save GRN. And when we go back to our purchase orders list view, we're showing that the order has been received. And in fact, if we go in and take a look at the history now, the history will be building up. So not only was it, the order was created, it was approved, sent to the supplier, and now we're showing that it's been received as well. And that is Zahara. It's almost like case management for a purchase. So the next part of the process is, of course, the invoice coming in, and let's look at that next. So Zahara has an invoice inbox. We're just going to switch into it now. From documents, we click on invoice inbox. So the invoice inbox is where all invoices are received. Now you can either tell your suppliers to either mail them directly into Zahara, or you can set up forwarding. So I've just sent in an invoice from Travis Perkins. It's at the top of my list here. It's saying the invoice number is 3480. It's matched the supplier based on the email address. So that's the first thing we do. If you save the supplier's email address in their supplier record, then we can match the supplier from the email address. We can also read the supplier name. So we're saying actually the one we've read on the invoice is Travis Perkins Trading Company Limited, which is often the case where you have shortened the supplier's actual name down. And even in this list view here where we've read the invoice, we can see the net value of the purchase order, the value of the invoice, and we've identified the purchase order number on the page. So how have we done that? Well, let's take a look. So we've got three ways effectively of processing an invoice. We can do it where we check the invoice. Within a few clicks we can create it. We've got something called autopilot, where effectively the recognition of the invoice is trusted, the supplier has been trusted, and it just automatically goes through. And you can also do it in batches, where you select the invoices here in the list and you click on create, and it will batch process them. So I'm going to click on process the invoice. My initial screen here is showing me the invoice. We've got the business unit, Rapid Systems, we've got the supplier that's matched, we've got the purchase order number, and we can see here, just at this view here, the PO is for 133124, so it's the invoice, and the invoice number is 3480 up here. So our recognition is reading the page. If I was working in a team and I wanted to put this one on hold, I could do that, or I could add a comment for a colleague. It could be you're not ready to process this invoice yet, and therefore you want to hold it and you want to leave a comment. But I'm ready to move on, so I'm going to click on continue. From this screen here again, we've got the invoice, we've got our key fields, our above the line item fields, and then we've got our line items. We're showing the line items from the invoice that we've read, and we're showing you the line items from the purchase order. If I wanted to make any amendments to these line items, I could do. I could click into edit it, I could change any of the coding, override it, but I'm good to go. So if I'm going to go back to my list view, I'm going to click on continue. I've got some comments I could add, could be for an approver. And in terms of the invoice approval process, this could be preset with all of the logic required for you to just process the invoice, or you could override it. For example, we could have an invoice for where there's a difference between the order and the invoice. We could have one where there's no order at all, it's a standalone invoice. I'll just set it to automatic, click continue, and then click create invoice. And there's my invoice here. It's been created. It's now moved from the inbox into the invoices list view. And our job here is to now get the invoice either approved or into the finance system. So we've been working with dummy data in a business unit called Rapid Systems, and I've just switched into a genuine business called Click to Scan. Now this is what a good invoice list view looks like, where you've got all of your invoices listed. They've all been exported into your finance system, and they were obviously all approved as well. And the approval can be just a workflow in the sense of the invoice comes in, gets exported into the finance system, and in my case Xero, and then gets filed away in our document management system as well. So Zahara has many integrations. And of course, if we want to check an invoice at any time, we just click into it. We should be able to see the PDF of the invoice with its line items, the line items we've recorded in Zahara and therefore have gone over to the finance system, and also the history of the invoice. So in this particular genuine company, Click to Scan, it is connected to Xero, and I can see a copy of this invoice in Xero by clicking the link here in the document. So the invoice we send over into the finance system can come over with the history or elements of the history that we sent over, example here, and also with the PDF of the invoice as well. So when I'm looking at the invoice here in Xero, I've got the original PDF of the invoice, and if I click back into my invoice in Zahara, I've got all of the corresponding data. And the Xero record also has a button to get you back to Zahara as well. So if you're searching for an invoice in Xero and you want to look at the corresponding invoice in Zahara, you can do that. And the other thing that is useful is that the history of the invoice is alongside the history of the purchase order as well. So if there's a corresponding purchase order, the origination of the purchase request, that will be here alongside the invoice. So now you've seen the functionality of Zahara, from creating a purchase request, seeing it approved, receiving its delivery, recording an invoice and linking the two together. Let's have a look at some of the functionality or the settings around Zahara to get you set up. So the first thing to say is that Zahara is a multi-business or a multi-entity system. So I'm currently in a business unit called Click to Scan, or an entity called Click to Scan, which has a corresponding company in a finance system. I'm going to switch back into my made-up business called Rapid Systems. So when I switch businesses, everything changes effectively. So not only do my list views change, my purchase orders, my invoices, but my suppliers, my coding, my budgets, my projects, they all change. So the starting place for any setup, once you've created your business, is what we call the divisions. And if you think of the divisions as the natural groupings of people inside your organization, a department, I hear you say. Yes, exactly. It's a department. So if we had a look at the sales department here, or the sales division, there are a few things here. We've got user management, so we can assign users to this division, so we can give them access to it. We can create a budget for this division. So budgets can be quite granular in the sense of how much can I spend against different nominal codes or different account codes in different periods. So weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And then we've also got workflows. So the workflows are Zahara's kind of clever elements that make things happen. So if you remember when we created our purchase order to Travis Perkins, and I said that it's going to skip the business unit and the finance director. Remember I said the second approver and the third approver? Well, this is why, because in this approval process here, which is called order approval, the first approver, which happens to be me, is going to be asked to approve absolutely everything. And if you remember, I did approve it by email. The second approver, what I've called here the business unit head, is only going to be asked to approve if it's more than 10,000. And the finance director is only going to be asked to approve if it's more than 25,000. That's why we skipped stages 2 and 3. And those additional steps, what you'll see is kind of multi-step approvals in Zahara. They can have conditions, and you can build the conditions up any way you want. So if we were to edit one of these workflows, or this particular workflow, and we had a look at the finance director and we edited it, so at the moment the condition is set to net value is more than 25,000, and I could edit that condition and change it to less than or something like that, but I could add a second condition in, and I could say, and the supplier name is equal to Travis, or contains Travis, confirm condition. So get the finance director to approve if it's more than £200 and the supplier name equals Travis Perkins. So in that purchase order we created, that would result to true actually, and the finance director would have been asked to approve it. But I'm not going to save those changes. I don't want that to happen. Now, things like sending an email you can do in Zahara. You can send a purchase order to the supplier, and there's even a condition on this saying send a purchase order to the supplier provided the buying category is not equal to Amazon, or it could be credit card, for example. And we can add another step. So we could email someone, we could email a bunch of people. We could send the PO to the supplier, as we said. We could change a field value. There's a few things we can do, and we can convert purchase orders to invoices, which is kind of like for expenses. When an expense claim comes in, we can convert it. So our approvals are really nice and flexible and fast to set up, and the kind of approval that we would have for an invoice, if we were to edit this one here, invoice approval no order, we might want to add a final step onto this which says export the invoice. So export invoice. So if you have a integration in Zahara for a finance system that we are fully integrated with, such as Xero, QuickBooks, MYOB, Sage Intacct, Sage 50, Sage 200, then we can export the invoices into those systems directly without you having to download a CSV file or a spreadsheet or something like that. So workflows are very flexible in Zahara. They enable you to get set up really, really quickly. Now, I showed you suppliers. The other things we have in the list for you here are projects. So if you're a project-centric organization like events or like construction, you can create a project inside Zahara. So for example here, Sales Conference 2020, not particularly recent by the looks of it, but we can create a big number project, a big number budget, like, 50,000. We could have a project income, and we could then see that the kind of like an overall position, or we can create a granular budget for the project, where again we can set out how much can be spent on different nominal codes, and the period of time could be either monthly or indefinite. So projects are something that you obviously assign a purchase or an invoice to at a kind of line level. So if we look at our line items down here, we will see the first thing we've got down here is like a project field, and then you can have project items as well if that's something that you need. The other thing that we had up in our menu here was coding lists. So we've got tax codes, nominal codes, cost codes. You can create additional custom fields down here as well, which I'll show you in our business settings. So our business settings are extensive. It means that Zahara is highly customizable. The main thing is that there are settings for many different kind of elements of Zahara. You can search for them up here. They're well documented in our knowledge base, but you can also customize things. So simple things like sending a purchase order to a supplier, the email that you send to that supplier can be customized, and you can change the wording, you can change the different fields. If we went back and looked at the actual purchase order template that we send to a supplier, again, this is customizable. You can choose the fields that you want to display, you can choose the wording about where you want your invoice to be sent to, and you can create custom fields, which I mentioned. You can create custom fields for orders, invoices, line items. You can create custom buttons, you can choose your integration. So in our case, this particular business unit is connected to, in fact, it's not connected to anything. It just says Sage 50 CSV, which means it would export CSV files. But if we change that to Xero, then it's going to want us to connect to Xero and would take us through that process. The other area of Zahara for settings is what we call the tenancy settings, and this is where you will find user management. So each of the business units can have its own settings, and then you can create settings around the whole of your tenancy. And this is where you would say, if you take Harry Pierce as a user, we can control quite granularly what this person can and can't do. So for example, if we don't want them creating suppliers, we can untick that. Now Zahara is a real benefit to provide this compared to your finance system, which might have far fewer options and basically is almost like a binary true or false. They can either use the finance system or they can't. Whereas with Zahara, it's way more granular. And we've also got things like, if you wanted to send password resets or set passwords manually, or choose if you want them to log in with, Microsoft or Google, or if they can have access to the mobile app. And finally, in Zahara, we have analysis. Now, at month end, you're going to want to get at some numbers. You're going to want to find out the value of things like invoices or orders that are yet to be exported, or the difference between orders and invoices, the value of invoices on dispute. And that can all be done here. When you log in, you can choose your date range, you can choose your business unit, and you can see the numbers down here. And if you wanted to run a list of your purchase orders off, you would just click on the purchase orders list view here. Again, you can choose your date range, and then you can export into a format that you like, for example, Excel, and it would produce an Excel spreadsheet and drop it down. So Zahara's reporting gives you everything you need. And additionally, we have a section for subscription where you can see your usage of Zahara and how many invoices you've created or how many orders you've created in a given period. So that is my fast overview of Zahara, where we originated a purchase order, we got it approved, we received a delivery, and then we matched an invoice against it using our OCR technology. And I've shown you all the settings of Zahara as well. I hope that's been useful. I would recommend that if you wanted to discuss this further, you book in for a demonstration. We'll not only show you the elements of Zahara again that you're interested in, but gives you an opportunity to ask questions and see how our experts think that you could be able to deploy Zahara into your business. So thank you for watching.